Two giant fantasy series, House of the Dragon and Rings of Power, are about to collide. Episode 1 of House of the Dragon is out. Next week, Rings of Power releases, and millions of people are waiting to see how they'll turn out, but fan reception has been very different. House of the Dragon actors have released questionable interviews, and we've heard about changes like race swaps, but with Rings of Power, there has been way more negativity. Nothing has released for this show that hasn't been scrutinized, but House of the Dragon is already besting Rings of Power in fan excitement. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or support the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So I initially found out about the situation on social media. I saw this Culture Crave post that says pre-release audience demand for House of the Dragon is 20 times higher than the Rings of Power, which to me is so sad yet so hilarious at the same time, because we should be more excited for Rings of Power. I mean, without Tolkien's work, you would not have House of the Dragon, but I wanted to reference this article from Quartz. It says HBO Max's House of the Dragon is already besting Amazon's The Rings of Power. Now, I have made videos on both of these series. I have given a lot of thoughts on kind of the early footage and the interviews that we've seen, and I haven't been very impressed with either of these shows, but I will be watching them both. I will be doing, full reviews on them, giving my thoughts on them, how they turn out. I'm hoping that they both turn out great, but unfortunately, I don't think they will. It says HBO's Game of Thrones prequel House of the Dragon will debut on August 21st, just 11 days before the release of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Now, we knew that there would be quite a rivalry between these two series simply because they get compared a lot. Game of Thrones versus Lord of the Rings, which is better? Everyone's got their own opinions. Of course, I think Lord of the Rings is better. I think that Tolkien's work is better than Martin's, though I have enjoyed Game of Thrones in the past, but yes, the first episode of House of the Dragon has released. I did see it. I'm not going to give any spoilers in this video, but I actually thought that it was pretty solid. Of course, when you're starting out a series and you have to explain characters and explain the story, there's a lot to shove into the first few episodes, but it was okay. It says, though, a comparative Google Trend search comparing interest in the two series over the last 30 days shows that House of the Dragon has garnered far more interest from potential viewers than the tale based on Tolkien's sword and sorcery source material. Searches for the two shows were nearly identical until July, when the first trailers for both shows were released. Now, I have talked about both of these shows multiple times. There has been a lot of questions surrounding what stories they're going to tell, changes they're making to characters. At this point, I'm feeling very worried about both of these series just based on actor interviews, showrunner interviews, and discussions that they've had with news outlets. But as you can see, the Google Trends search interest May to August is very, very different. Fans are clearly more interested in House of the Dragon, and I think a giant part of that is promotional. Okay, I feel like the promotional material we have gotten for these shows have been very different, and there hasn't been as much for the Rings of Power, which you'd think that they would shove a ton of money into promo work, that we would see advertisements for it on, Amazon and Twitch. We would see advertisements on YouTube and Twitter and social media. And I feel like all of the ads that I at least have seen have been House of the Dragon, except for the videos that are put up on YouTube where we end up all talking about it. It's in recommended because I've looked at the Prime Video account so many times. I feel like they have definitely dropped the ball with Rings of Power. It says, since then, House of the Dragon has far outpaced Rings of Power, with the former scoring 100 out of a possible 100 in terms of interest this week. Now, a massive difference between these two shows for me are what we are getting from them, okay? House of the Dragon is pretty accurate to the source material and also what Martin wanted this show to be. There's no new original characters as far as we know, there's no new storylines. Most of it is very accurate, and with Rings of Power, it is way different. People wanted Tolkien's original stories, original characters, and now with this series, we're hearing about all of these brand new Amazon created characters and Amazon created storylines. That's not the type of product that we want to consume. If we look back at the Lord of the Rings films that came out years ago, Peter Jackson said that him and his team tried to make it as close to what Tolkien would want the films to be as possible. And if that's what they did with Rings of Power, people probably would have loved it. Without Lord of the Rings, we wouldn't even have Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, and J.R.R. Tolkien and his son Christopher told incredible stories that have shaped fantasy and entertainment as we know it. But when you twist and manipulate material, people will fight back. Then something like this happens. Now people are more excited for House of the Dragon than Rings of Power, all because you have twisted the material and you are not following the amazing groundwork that has been laid for you. And this first episode of House of the Dragon has impressed fans. As you can see, the critic scores are an 85% and the average audience score is an 89%. Do I think that Rings of Power is going to reach those numbers based on one episode? No, I think that people are going to be extremely critical of it, again, because it's not really following the material that they had to work with. But if we go on over to YouTube and we look at the Prime Video official accounts, all of these trailers, all of this material has been absolutely ratioed. If we look at the main teaser trailer, it has over 31 million views. It's sitting at 130,000 likes to nearly 2 million dislikes. If we look at the main teaser, it's at 12 million views, 77,000 likes, 476,000 dislikes. And then the San Diego Comic-Con trailer, 11 million views, 82,000 likes to 376 million dislikes. And you don't see like to dislike ratios like this on House of the Dragon content right now. At the end of the day, this is what happens when you blow fans off and you give them the middle finger. You tell them if you don't like it, don't watch it. People are not going to show up to watch it. People are going to show up to ratio any posts you put out on social media. And then something like this happens where people are more excited for House of the Dragon than Rings of Power. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.